I'm a little bit edgy because I just had a donut. Woo! I'm not nervous. I'm chill. Here we go, guys. Here we go. That's notable. Hey, I'm Greg Marshall. This is That's Notable. I'm going to be interviewing people who have been recognized as notable marketing executives. So welcome to That's Notable. I hope you enjoy the conversations. Welcome to That's Notable. It's a podcast where we interview people who were recognized as notable marketing executives. And we're here to find out what we think's notable about them because, there's a lot there. And today, DeVona Wright Cottrell is who I'm interviewing, and she's amazing. Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel at GMR Marketing. She joined at the height of the COVID stuff in a massive big events company and had to navigate a ton of complexity with that. As a lawyer, she's just amazing. And the stuff she does in the community is profound too, on so many levels. Individual mentorship. She sits on boards of organizations, of a school, deeply involved with United Way, Tempo. She's doing a lot of good things everywhere in the professional world, but also in her own family. Anyways, she's deep, she's brilliant, and you're going to like this conversation. But before I get to it, I just want to acknowledge today's sponsor, which is the passage of time. I think we all can appreciate the passage of time as being steady for all of us from the beginning, unless you are traveling at the speed of light, at which time it changes. But we just wanted to say thanks to the passage of time for making this episode possible, and hopefully you can show the passage of time some love. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. It's Thursday. Yeah.
Has it been a busy week?
Well, it's been a very hectic week.
Why? What have you been doing?
Yeah, well, I was out last week at a conference called Corporate Council with Women of Color, getting my cup filled.
Okay.
And it was in Las Vegas.
What was your number one takeaway from that conference?
That I'm living in purpose exactly as I should.
That's nice.
Yeah. And not to take for granted any opportunity to make a connection with another human being. Because you never know what's going to come out of that from a personal or professional perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've found too that with especially not showing favoritism to people who can give you something or advance you, but like any person that happens to really cross your path and you know it.
Absolutely.
Just to value them.
Yes.
And recognize that like we think of ourselves as so high sometimes, but like realizing that I'm often the person that can't help another person.
Exactly. I can lead you to a resource potentially, but I may not be the answer.
Yeah.
So
no. You come back from that conference feeling great, but then you get kicked in
pretty pumped up. You get kicked in the face with all things, right? Work that never stops, that keeps going, right? You got to dig back into that. Family obligations and responsibilities and just life.
Yeah, and you've had some significant curveballs with family and just the challenges that life brings that maybe we'll get to talk about. So as a lawyer,
yes.
I really like the show Suits on Netflix.
Oh, really? I started to watch Suits.
You into it?
I did. It was too many episodes for me. I'm not a huge TV watcher.
Yeah.
But it was very, very interesting because I'm not a litigator as well. So it was interesting to see Hollywood's perspective of what, law firm and courtroom life is like. So.
Yeah. And I feel like it'd be kind of funny if you pretended like you were a litigator in your space, in your office space.
Yes.
You show up at meetings and you're just like rocking the litigator style.
Well, oftentimes I would say people do think that, and sometimes my family does.
Okay.
Like my husband will say, stop interrogating me because I can ask a question 15 different ways. But that's the art of lawyering, right?
Yeah. I remember I had an early encounter with a lawyer who invited me out on a boat for something. I was pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
and I had just started a nonprofit organization. No clue what we were actually doing, but doing a thing. And he just drilled me with questions. Like I felt like I was being like put upside down, right side up, move to the left, I was just dizzy.
Yes.
And I'm like, is this what lawyers are like?
And we don't feel that, right? Like that's often a way that we engage in conversation is by being inquisitive. And I've had to learn over the years, especially with kids, to kind of back off of that because literally they get home from school. I'm like, how was your day? It was good. Okay, what was good about your day? Well, I had a good lunch. Okay, what did you have for lunch? So it's like all the things. Why did you eat that? You know, who did you talk to? And I'm just trying to get information, but it feels pressure on the other side. So I get that.
All right. So back to my Netflix question. If your life was a show and
Wow.
it took place at work, but also your family, what would be the drama that's happening right now? In general or specific?
I would say the drama would be the intersection between work and family and really trying to pour into and develop people, team members, while also having to, be a wife, mother, minister, all the things that come on the personal side, and a caregiver. And so the drama is the intersection of all those things at the same time. And some of the balls that may get dropped because of the balls that you have to focus on at any particular moment. And so I like to refer to crystal balls and rubber balls to focus myself in the day. And sometimes in portions of the day where I say, okay, I'm going to kill it as a chief legal officer and general counsel and career woman today. But that means that my family might suffer because I can't get to my daughter's basketball game. Or I'm not checking in on my son who is in Florida in college. And so there can be drama with those things. Or I've tossed the rubber ball to someone to handle a thing and it doesn't get handled in the way that I would handle it. That causes a lot of drama. I do have this superpower that I think is calmness, where, on the outside, I am definitely looking cool as a cucumber, but I am paddling like Hades underneath the water. And so that's my drama.
Yeah. So what do you feel like is having to sacrifice most right now? What do you have to get? What is giving the most right now? In terms of like, the thing that you're not able to give the attention that you want this month.
That's hard to answer because I look at life as what I need to do now. I strongly believe that God gives us capacity to do what it is that He has put us on this earth to do. And I also believe that I walk in purpose in every area that I serve. And so I don't know that it's sacrificial for the month. It might be sacrificial for the moment. So for instance, I'm here doing this podcast for you and I have all these back-to-back meetings on my calendar that I can't get to sort of any of those things, right? And when I get home, I am paddling like the duck in the water, right, to get to the next meeting and to really be present in what they're needing me to be in that moment. And so that I would be sacrificing in the moment. And so I take each day as it comes, one day at a time, one moment at a time. And I don't look even though I'm a planner, I don't look too far in the future because that can be pretty overwhelming based upon what I feel like my assignment is on earth. And so I'm pretty present from day to day. So what's getting sacrificed right now in the moment is work. But again, tomorrow it could be something else.
Yeah. So there's DeVona that's here right now.
Yes.
There's DeVona in the future.
Yeah.
Later today, tomorrow. Let's not go any farther than that.
Yes.
And then there's DeVona from yesterday. These are, DeVona in the past. So the three DeVonas, present, past, future DeVonas, right?
Yes.
So how do you habitually take care of future DeVona? What things do you do that makes future DeVona's life easier, better, taken care of? Or do you not look out for her? Does she have to fend for herself a lot?
I've started to look out for her more. I wasn't very good at that in the future. In the past, I've become pretty comfortable asking for help and letting people know what it is that I need, which still isn't a very comfortable place because I'm used to taking care of myself. I grew up very independently, very much a planner, figuring things out. And so it was a learned behavior to be able to ask for help. And that's how I really help future DeVona. So next week, I have a milestone birthday. To help future DeVona, I scheduled a massage the morning of my birthday. Even though it's a work day, I'll work the afternoon, but I will pour into me in the morning. I spend time with family and friends. I have, a group of girlfriends that are really honest with me, that pour into me, that, support me, lift me up, that can feel my spirit when things aren't as they should be. And I also pray every day and ask God to order my steps and, be the lamp unto my feet and the light unto my path. And so that He creates that space for me to be able to exist in whatever position that I'm in that moment.
You talked about how you grew up, pretty independent, a lot of planning. What has your relationship with? We're going deep to this stuff, right? Because I know you can. Will, so like I'm going here. How would you describe your relationship with younger you? Like here you are, very successful, recognized a lot. Notable marketing executive and notable everything else, all the other things. Or if I want to find out what's happening in your life, I just open up the business journal and try to find whatever article is about you. But very successful as a kid. Like, have you had to reconnect with younger you to be at peace now? Like, talk about that relationship.
I definitely think so. The younger me was finding her way. And trying to figure things out.
Like in a self-destructive way?
Not in a self-destructive way, but I would say I was very different than many members of my family. And so I am one of 12 children. We're really 13 in a blended family. And I am number 12. So there's only one younger than me. And I had a really close relationship with my siblings because while it was a blended family, my parents were very much true to closeness and tight-knit and making sure that, we all knew that we were family. We were brothers and sisters. There was no such thing as a half brother or half sister. And so my mom made sure that I was connected and my brother was connected with our other siblings. And so their direction in life was, what I saw was wanting something different. And that was not that they were bad people. It was they worked hard. They cared for family. I wanted a career, and that wasn't something that I saw in my family, even from my parents. While they were very hard workers. Both of them grew up as sharecroppers. My mom completed the 11th grade. My dad completed the 3rd grade, was blessed to move here from South and get a wonderful job when, we had, those blue collar manufacturing jobs that supported our family. And my mom worked as a housekeeper for most of her life. But there was always a struggle. And so while the term poor was not something that I knew at the time, because our house was always filled with so much enrichment around like love and just giving of the heart from that perspective. And my mom was really creative. I think she could be a marketer in terms of what she did to create meals to make sure that we could eat. If that was looking in the pantry to see if there was 4 cans of different vegetables left, what she was going to do with what she had in the refrigerator to make a unique meal that we all thought was, delicious and wonderful, but it really was all that we had left. And I wanted to be able to have a career where I could give back to my family for a better life for them, but also give back to broader community to make the world a better place. And so as a young me, there's a natural sort of tension because I don't have a lot of professionals in my family to know what that looks like. But I have this like earning desire in the inside that I know that there is something else. And so sometimes there's conflict with that because you just don't know. And you're different, right? Because you have the, oh, you think you're better than us sort of play out.
How old were you when you first noticed that? Like the pushback on you wanting to do something like this?
I think it was very early. I would say from probably middle school. And I think the pushback started in school, right? Because I went to a suburban school. I was a Chapter 220 student.
Say what Chapter 220 is.
So Chapter 220 was a busing program that MPS had with suburban school districts, and it might not just be MPS had, it was the city of Milwaukee had, where children that lived in the city would get bused to suburban districts. So like a Franklin or a Wauwatosa, a Greendale, Greenfield. And the design was so that suburban students would also be bused into Milwaukee for integrating the schools, right, to make the schools more diverse. And so with that, I had been a Chapter 220 student since the 4th grade. And so I had been in environments where there weren't a ton of people like me in school with me. And that kind of feeling of other was, I think, the originator of you're different. And that was just from a visual difference. That was experiences. Like I would have conversations with my classmates and not really know how to connect because we weren't having similar experiences or conversations in our household. And so not knowing how to be a part of those conversations. And so
did that make you want to experience those things, or did it make you feel shame? Like, was it both mixed, or like, oh, I'd never had that experience, I feel like I don't fit, or I want to be a part of that?
I think both because it was in the moment, I never had that experience, and I wish, that I could, go out of the country with my family, or, I wish I could have these experiences where, I'm going to some restaurant, or I'm having an experience where, I get to go to a professional basketball game. Like I was an adult the first time I went to a professional basketball game. So different experiences like that. But then when I come home after school, I felt very much at peace with the surroundings that I was in, the community that I was a part of. And so I think it was a both and.
Mm-hmm. You talked about, you said the line, I wish I could go overseas with my family or travel around the world. Do you remember the first time you went on a big trip where you were just kind of standing there? Did you have a moment of like, wow, I'm doing this thing that as a kid I knew nothing about?
I think I had traveled a few times before I had that realization. And I was very much well into adulthood. So I traveled on vacation, to Mexico when I was in my early 20s, I would say. And then I was close to late 20s, I would say, where I had done an experience. I was getting my executive MBA from UWM. And it was an international business class. And part of the class is you would travel to another country, basically, where there were other businesses that were also in Wisconsin, where there was a connection. And so we traveled to Seoul, Korea, and we traveled to Beijing, China. And when I was in Beijing, I had the opportunity to just experience culture, to do a lot of different things and experience things that were that I had never ever seen before. And so it was surreal to me. And that's when I think I had a moment like, you're on the other side of the world. Um, and you're doing something that you never would have imagined that you would be able to do. You're interacting with culture, interacting with people from another country in a different language, but connecting from a human perspective, even though you don't speak the same language. And so it was almost like having an out-of-body experience. And at that time, decided, like, I want to do more of this. And I want to make sure, at certain points in time that I expose this to my children. And at that time, I was pregnant with my first child. And I think when you are building another human being, you naturally go through these somersaults. Speaking from my perspective as a woman, carrying a child, and you envision certain things for them. And so I think because I was pregnant with him, I was able to sit in a space and absorb and look back on life and appreciate where I had been, but also where I was in a way that I hadn't before.
Did you ever doubt that you could become a lawyer?
Never.
Do you remember when it became a conscious belief?
I do. It became a conscious belief in the 8th grade at a career fair where I met a lawyer who talked about his profession. And what I gleaned from that was more of the impact that he made because of the knowledge he gained by being a lawyer, the way that it trains you to think very critically, and I think about the future and others, and the way that the law was a sort of a self-regulating organization and a creator of things. And so the creativeness and the impact piece, I think, it struck a chord that I didn't realize that it was striking that chord until later in life. But it did develop a passion where I said, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to do that. And I told my parents, and they were very supportive. They're like, we believe you can do anything. And that was the one thing that was really helpful for me, was even though there wasn't the means that they could provide to help me get there, it was the support of, we believe in you, and we know if you set your mind to do something, you're going to make that thing happen. And so at that point, it was, okay, this is what I want to do. But you're a kid. I mean, 8th grade, I'm 12 years old. And so I have this thing in my mind that I know I want to do. And I get to high school, and it's still like a burning passion. And unfortunately, the high school I went to wasn't, I would say, ready for integration of Black students in the way that the program was set up. So while it was late 80s, early 90s, for me, it was like my parents had described the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, and some of the 70s for them. It was just racial discord in a way that a 12, 13-year-old, so I'm 13 as a freshman, would never expect. My freshman year, we get off our bus and we have parents and students outside saying, N-word, go home. Like, this is stuff that you would see in...
And this was in the early 90s.
This was 88, 89. Yes, my freshman year. And so that was like, whoa, so right?
Clear. She didn't say 58.
She said 88, 89. Yes, I was there from 88 to 92.
Did you, are you able to communicate what that girl was experiencing inside at that moment? Was it terrifying, or was it was it kind of just like such a shock that you just walked by it and you went, that's strange, or did it hit you?
It was terrifying on the one hand, but it was almost lit a fire, like, what in the world is going on here? Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, why are we here? And now what's my part to overcome this? Because again, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And from my parents' perspective, I was at a good, quote unquote, good school, right? You said this is this thing you wanted to do. This is the school that's going to help you get there. And so you have to figure out, and we have to figure out how to help you manage this so that you can get through it to realize your dreams. And while
Was it a quote unquote good school academically for you?
it was a good school academically,
Did that get better over time?
the academics
The
or
racial tensions.
not necessarily. I think we adapted, right? So
Tired of coming.
so I will say, I guess it did get better. There was some, so sports, right, is an area where you find where you have more in common than you have different, right? And so we found ways of survival where we could lean into the education aspect of it. So I was very active. I was on the basketball team. I was on the track team. I was a part of a group of Black girls that created a drill team because we couldn't be on the cheerleading team because they wouldn't select Black girls for the cheerleading team. So we're like, well, we want to dance and we want to do things at games. So we created our own drill team and we did that. And the space was allowed for us to be able to do that. And so there were ways that as a student, you became friends and you developed commonalities and you got to know each other. Because one thing that I've learned is that kids are not inherently racist. Their parents can be, or their parents can have racist tendencies that they learned. It's a learned behavior, right? And so when they're at school and they see you're a human being just like them and you have things and interests, things in common just like they do, and you're playing sports together and you're laughing and you're doing things that people do in high school, some of those barriers come down. And then I think they're able to enlighten their parents sometimes, but it made the school environment a lot better. The challenge was because these issues started freshman year, the class that I started with was a class of about, I would say 20 to 25. I don't know the exact number, but it was about 20 to 25 African-American students in my freshman class. When I graduated my senior year, it was 5 of us because the rest had left because of the various different issues that had transpired. They transferred to different schools, whether it was MPS or other schools outside of that school district. And so it was a lonely place. And for me, I know how to focus. Like if I get something in my mind and it's something that I want to accomplish, I know how to just get super focused on that thing and sort of drown out the noise of the drama and everything else that's going on around me related to that. And so it also fueled my passion even more to be a lawyer. Partly it was the negative that was fueling me around, you say I can't do something, you don't believe that I'm good enough, I'm going to show you. And so that was a driver for a very long time of getting things done. It was showing the naysayers that I could do it.
Yeah. Oh, you reminded me of a story I think I heard you tell about you ended up teaching.
Yes.
And tell that story.
Yeah, so I was a sort of adjunct professor at MATC and teaching a business law class for the semester for one of the professors. Actually,
because you have an MBA.
Because I have an MBA and I have a law degree. And I was teaching this business law class, and one of my classmates from high school was in the class.
And not like this classmate, what was their perspective in high school towards race?
Earlier on, I think it was negative because this person was outside my freshman year that I knew was outside, and I remembered her face very vividly getting off the bus. However, her perspective had changed, and we had a conversation after that class about high school. And she was actually working a part-time job with my husband at the time, so she knew my husband as well, and so we talked about that. But it was comforting to know that she had transcended that experience, and so had I. And we had met at a moment where we could sort of clear the air that we hadn't been able to do in high school. But it was also like, wow, like you're a lawyer, you have an MBA, you're giving back, you're teaching this class, and your high school counselors told you to get a job out of high school because that's the best that you could do. And I have someone that now I'm pouring into who my high school counselors thought was the cream of the crop, who deserved to go to college and who deserved all the tools to be able to get there, who for whatever reasons, I'm sure, personal or whatever, didn't do that.
Yeah, wow. So then one of the things that shows up in your story is your personal mission statement. It follows you, it leads you, it's beside you, it's the aura that you carry.
Yeah.
And just knowing your, like, as everybody's hearing some of your story, it'll make sense. But here's the mission statement. DeVona's personal mission statement, as performed by Greg Marshall, host of That's Notable podcast. To make a positive impact on each day and every person that she encounters, and to build a runway where other women, youth, and young professionals can see what is possible. Is that true?
That's very accurate.
Okay, so positive impact on each day and every person that you encounter, to build a runway where other women, youth, and young professionals can see what's possible. What does that look like on an average day? And specifically, how much of this is a conscious choice versus how you've, through habits in life, wired yourself and it's just subconsciously happening? How much you have to think like, I'm making a way for this person, I'm creating a runway for this person, versus you look at the rearview mirror after a while and you're like, yep, still doing it. And then you move on. You know what I mean?
I think it happens consciously and subconsciously simultaneously. So I'm very intentional. Like, that is my mission statement, and it's very much at the forefront of my mind. And so when I'm having interactions, I want those interactions from my perspective to be positive, even if it's a difficult conversation that I'm having with an individual. Like, my job can be very difficult at times. Sometimes I have to deliver very bad news. Sometimes I have to be a part of a decision that is not always going to be great for another human being. But I want them to know that they have dignity and respect in that conversation, even when it's not a great conversation. And so that's when it's very much at the forefront. Like, I'm watching the tone of my voice. I'm watching to see, that person's body language and, their expressions, to make sure that how I'm landing on them is more positive than negative, so that they walk away like, okay, that was bad, but she made it better by my interaction with her. And then it is, last week, like I said, I was at the Corporate Council of Women of Color, and there was 2,000 diverse women from all over the country that are attorneys, right? And then there were also law students. And so I had an opportunity to talk to someone who was a law student who was looking for what her next opportunity would be. And so in that instance, I'm very intentional, having a conversation with her about her goals and like, what does she want to do? What is she doing now? What is she doing in the community? What does she want her career to look like? And then I'm thinking, at the same time, how can I be helpful to her? What other connections can I build for her? And so while we're at the conference, there are others that I know at the conference. And so I'm making sure that I'm introducing her to other people and making that connections for her, because I very much believe in, I think I've given this analogy before in track. I ran track and I was on a 4x4 relay. And my expectation was for the person that handed me the baton, that they were leaving me in a better position. And that when I was passing the baton, I was leaving that person in a better position to be able to run the race and win the race. And so that's what I look at when I think about my impact on a person. It is making whatever the opportunity is, if it's, providing a resource, connecting them to another person, helping them to solve a problem, being that smile that they need, the hug that they need, the encouragement that they need, development that they need, that helps them to go a little further easier.
Yeah. There's so many places we could go into that. But I want to see how this translates, the way you operate, the way you function, how it manifests in your technical job.
Mm-hmm.
So you come into GMR marketing at the height of COVID, didn't you?
I come into at the height of COVID. It was August of 2020 when I joined.
Okay, and you guys do massive events.
We do massive events.
And so events, COVID, lawyer.
Yes.
What did you have to do in order to protect the organization, guide the organization from a legal standpoint? What was happening?
Well, I think we looked very different than we had in the past because we were a outside events company, right? An outside experience company. So we had to think about how do we pivot and still provide the services that we provide to our clients in a different way. And then how do we also protect the organization so that we don't, lose resources, whether that's people, that's revenue. And so that comes in a lot of different ways. What policies do we have in place to protect our story makers, is what we call our employees, who are coming into the office? And so you talk about COVID, right? And so now we have a policy, we have an environment where many people are working from home. Most people are working from home at this point. And then you have to navigate to a point where you're at some point moving back into the office. And what does that look like? And so you think about, the masking policies that were happening at that time, the requirements on vaccines that were happening at that time. And as a legal profession, you're managing, the legal requirements, the risk to the organization, and then the human being and how it's so polarized in terms of how people feel about these things. But you have to do what's in the best interest of the organization. And so, developing policies that both protect, manage risk, and also take into account like the human experience. And then how do you communicate that? So working very closely with like our HR team at the time and making sure that, those policies accomplished all those tasks, and then communicating that is one thing to communicate to the org something like everyone, and then also walking that out with your team. And at the time, most of my team was Wisconsin-based. I have one person who lives in Illinois. And as we moved through COVID, there was some...
Once they perform high enough, they're able to move to Wisconsin?
No, we are right, exactly. Yeah. All of our great people. No, we have wonderful people all over the world. No, that's the great thing about the company. We have an any place workplace experience policy, and so people can work technically. If your job does not have to be done physically in the office, that you can work from anywhere and get your job done. And so we are now probably, I think, 80%. No, I wouldn't say that. I believe it's probably more like 60-40 Wisconsin and non-Wisconsin, but we're 80% dispersed, meaning 80% of our workforce works from home currently. My team goes in the office once a week. But back to like the time during COVID, there was definitely a period of time where we had people who believed in vaccination and got vaccinated, and those who were vaccinated could come into the office. Those who weren't could not. And so like managing that piece, I had people on my team who were not vaccinated, right? And that was their personal choice to be able to do that. But then it was the hard choice of those individuals were not able to be in the office. And then I have a portion of my team in the office and a portion of my team not in the office, and making sure that, they all felt like they were still a part of the team, even though there was a policy preventing them from coming to the office. And I think that's like how you communicate. And then, contractually in the beginning, like we are an events business and now you can't have the event. And so it changed our way in terms of how we contract and the type of provisions that we put in our contract so that if there is a pandemic or an epidemic, we can, get our money back or not have to pay. And so like thinking through all of those issues or having a remote workforce, like how do you manage a remote team, developing those type of policies. And then the hard decisions of you have to let some people go because you don't have the work that you once had. And being able to do that in a mass way that also maintains dignity and respect. There's a myriad of different things that you have to do. I think in my position, I am both a legal advisor and a strategic business advisor. And so it's my job to make sure that I understand our business, understand our strategy, be a part of that and contribute to it, as well as manage risk for the organization. And it's based on risk appetite of the industry, risk appetite of our organization, risk appetite of our leaders. So it's not black and white. And that's actually what I enjoy most about
that was
my job.
Question was how you have the law degree, you have the executive MBA, law, more risk averse, MBA, growth, risk taking.
Yes.
How does that tension play out in your own way of operating? Which side is more natural?
They both live together. I think I've very much learned, and I would say this came through my prior experience when I was at Baird, where I was very much taught to think about the business issues. And, we had a former CEO that would say, like, lawyers will not run the company. And some people may think of that in a negative way, but I actually thought of it as a challenge in terms of it gives you the opportunity to learn the business. And so when you learn the business, you can advise them better, which is why I went back to get my MBA, because I was a law firm practitioner in a law firm. I was a partner in a law firm. And for me, 20 years ago, or, I left, I've been in-house since 2007. So, prior to that, for me, the law firm practice of law was very myopic to me because it was sort of forcing you almost into this black and white. You can do this, you can't do that. Analyze all the risk and the kitchen sink and make sure the client's aware of that. And then they go off and they make decisions, meaning the client, and you are not part of those decisions. You don't know if they took your advice. And that was like misaligned what I think who I was as a person, which is why I was geared toward more in-house. And I actually knew I wanted to be an in-house lawyer from the very beginning. But working for a law firm is the training ground for being able, at that time, it was a training ground because most companies didn't hire right out of law school, to be able to go in-house. And so it's natural for me to navigate between like black and white or gray and like what does the business want to do. And I think unless there's a regulatory rule that says you can't do X, there's room to have a discussion about what X is and how that impacts your organization and what that means from, okay, if you decide to make a different decision, what does that mean from a reputational perspective? Does that hinder your reputation and where you are trying to go? What does that mean from a regulatory perspective? Are there fines and penalties that are going to come with this decision? What does that mean from a revenue perspective? So you manage all those risks, you talk through all those risks, and then you make a decision based upon the appetite. And sometimes there won't be agreement as to the direction, but I don't view my role as having to make that decision. I'm an advisor. I'm going to provide you with options and recommendations. And then as the CEO or whatever the subject matter is for that particular leader having to make that decision, they make the decision and I'm a team player. So then I'm on board to drive the decision when that decision is ultimately made. And so I've learned not to take things personal. Like if someone doesn't take my recommendation and they go in a different direction, that's fine. That's a decision that they made that they have to live with. Just like when I have to make decisions, I have to live with them. So I don't take it personal.
Yeah, and they're informed, so they feel better.
They feel better.
Decision based on what they saw, and yeah. So what does it look like for you to sharpen your skills as a lawyer, as a person? Do you read stuff? Do you watch stuff? Listen to podcasts? What are you doing?
I am doing some of all of that. And I'm, like CCWC was professional development. So it was, there were courses that I took. It was a CLO symposium on different areas of the law that I can get up to speed on what some of the recent trends are. And so I'm making sure that I am aligned with that. I also am reading. I wouldn't say necessarily, my reading is more personal in terms of, different books to read, or really the Bible, right? Like I am really centered in my faith. And so that provides a lot of direction for me. And so I will read and listen to podcasts, like spiritual podcasts as well. Or
what's your favorite book in the Bible?
I would say
there that you go to, like default to.
I would say there are several, like Psalms 150 is a good one for me because it talks about praise and how, God welcomes praise and how praising him can lift you out of a situation that you might be in or a headspace that you might be in, and it directs your purpose elsewhere. I also definitely lean on Psalms 23, like, the Lord is my shepherd, right? He is my shepherd. He's directing my path. Like, I don't have to own that. I don't have to be responsible for that. I can give that over to him. And so it eases fear and discomfort that I have at times. Like if I am going into a difficult meeting, I will recite Psalms 23 before I go into that meeting. Yeah. And then, it's Jeremiah 29:11. Like, he knows the plans that he has for me. And so that's why I think I live in purpose, because this was all developed before I was in my mother's womb, right? This was the path that he had for me in all the things that I have on my plate. And I believe he has given me the space and grace to be able to accomplish what it is that is designed.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me. We started this when we saw the list of people who were acknowledged as notable marketing executives in the Biz Times, and wanted to have our own experience of finding what we think is notable about people. Because you see a bio and it's always pretty fancy.
Yeah.
Look at all the fancy.
Yes, it's pretty.
Yeah, but I think what's really fun about knowing you is I get to experience through this conversation, if I had never met you before, or the fact that I have met you and interacted in different settings. But you just have it's obvious that you're attached to a very deep well that you draw from, and it is a calming thing. Mm-hmm. But you're also well aware of the complexity and challenges that are always around us as humans, and the unique things that you're facing in work and family as a caregiver and all of that. But I think it's just so notable. The spirit that you operate in comes from a very deep place, mm-hmm. but it's not, it doesn't cut people off or make people feel less than. It's accessible and caring. And I think that's what allows you to be simultaneously very strong and very compassionate at the same time.
Yes.
And I like that healthy paradox that you are, the lawyer, the business, the like courageous and brave and strong mixed with compassion and kindness. So yeah, that's notable from my perspective. It's pretty awesome. So thanks for having a conversation and letting people get to know you better.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And having the conversation.
Yeah.
There's not often times that I get to have these type of conversations. And so very much welcome the opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure. And I just want to end by acknowledging our sponsor one more time. Today's episode is brought to you, the listener, by the passage of time. apparently Dylan, they heard the clocks sponsored an episode and they wanted to get in on it. Yeah.
I love it.
The passage of time, steady from the beginning, unless you're traveling at the speed of light, or if you happen to be a speedster, and have access to the Speed Force, which Flash was my favorite superhero as a kid,
Oh, was it?
and he had access to the Speed Force.
Wonder Woman was mine. I think she had it as well.
She's pretty up. Yeah, she's. Yeah.
Or She-Ra.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, He-Man was pretty. They had that green looking cat,
Oh, yeah.
whatever it was.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to That's Notable. Peace out.